Colorado Territory, 1875. The small mining town of Silverstone clung to the edge of the Rocky Mountains like a stubborn burr on a horse's flank. Even in spring, when wildflowers painted the surrounding meadows in splashes of purple and gold, the town remained a collection of weathered buildings and muddy streets where dreams either died or blossomed, depending on a man's luck and fortitude. And in a place where men outnumbered women 10-1, luck came in many forms. Samuel Whitman believed the frontier had no place for sentimentality. At 25, he'd already seen enough death and disappointment to last several lifetimes. The Civil War had taken his father, the mountain winter had claimed his mother, and cattle rustlers had stolen half his herd last season. All he had left was his small ranch 6 miles outside town and a fierce determination to survive without relying on anyone. Trusting others only led to heartache. This had become his creed. "You riding out tonight, Whitman?" The bartender at the Silverstone saloon pushed another whiskey toward him. "Storm's brewing. Might want to stay in town." Sam tossed back the amber liquid, welcoming its familiar burn. "I know my land better than any storm. Besides, the cattle need checking." The truth was, he preferred the solitude of his ranch to the crowded saloon. In 4 years, he'd built something from nothing, a modest herd, a sturdy cabin, and a reputation as a man who needed no one. It was enough. It had to be. The saloon doors swung open, bringing with them a gust of spring wind and the town's new schoolteacher. Conversations dimmed momentarily as men glanced toward Grace Lawson, then quickly resumed. At 22, she'd been in Silverstone for nearly 3 months, and the initial excitement of a new single woman in town had largely subsided, replaced by casual dismissal. Plain as a fence post, Sam had overheard the banker say once. "Though I suppose we can't be picky out here. Educated women ain't made for turning heads," the blacksmith had added. "Just filling heads with book learning." Sam watched as Grace moved through the room, nodding politely to those who acknowledged her. She wore a simple blue dress, her light brown hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing flashy or eye-catching. Yet something about the quiet dignity in her posture caught Sam's attention. She didn't strut or simper like the saloon girls, but neither did she shrink from the rough miners' gazes. When she reached the bar to speak with the owner about the upcoming school fundraiser, Sam found himself studying her profile, the straight nose, determined chin, and the way her eyes seemed to change from hazel to green depending on how the light hit them. "Miss Lawson," the saloon owner greeted her. "What brings you into my humble establishment?" "The school needs new books, Mr. Harris," she replied, her voice clear and confident. "And since your business benefits from an educated populace who can read your prices and count their change, I thought you might contribute to our fund." Sam couldn't help but smile. Most women would be intimidated in a place like this. Not Grace Lawson. The threatening storm finally broke as Grace finished her business. Rain lashed against the windows, and thunder rumbled through the valley. "Looks like you'll be staying in town after all," the bartender told Sam. Before Sam could respond, Grace approached the bar, concern etched on her features. "Mr. Harris, I fear I've waited too long. I'll never make it back to my boarding house without getting soaked through." "Take my coat," Sam heard himself say before he'd even formed the thought. Both Grace and the bartender looked at him in surprise. He rarely spoke to anyone, let alone offered assistance. "I couldn't possibly," she began. "I insist." He stood, shrugging off his long duster. "I'm Sam Whitman, ranch outside of town. Grace Lawson, the schoolteacher." She accepted the coat with a smile that transformed her entire face. For a moment, Sam couldn't look away. Her eyes caught the lamplight, revealing flecks of gold among the green. "Thank you, Mr. Whitman. I'll return it tomorrow." "Keep it until the rain stops," he replied, his voice gruffer than he intended. As she hurried out into the storm, coat pulled tight around her shoulders, Sam realized he'd just given away the only protection he had against the rain. And somehow, he didn't mind at all. The next day, Grace appeared at his ranch, his coat folded neatly over her arm. Sam was mending a fence when he spotted her approaching on horseback, sitting straight and confident in the saddle. Most town women rode side saddle or not at all. "Mr. Whitman," she called as she dismounted with practiced ease. "I've brought your coat and my thanks." Up close, in the bright spring sunshine, Sam noticed the sprinkle of freckles across her nose and cheeks. Her hair, freed from yesterday's tight bun, was gathered in a loose braid that caught the sunlight, revealing hints of honey gold among the brown. "You ride well," he said, accepting the coat. "Most schoolteachers I've known prefer carriages." "Most schoolteachers didn't grow up on a farm in Kansas," she replied with a smile. "Horses were our only transportation." "Kansas." Sam secured the last piece of wire on the fence. "Long way from home." Something flickered in her expression, a shadow of pain quickly masked. "Home is where you make it, Mr. Whitman. After the war took my parents and drought took our farm, I decided to make mine elsewhere." The simple statement hit Sam like a physical blow. Here was someone who understood loss as he did, yet hadn't walled herself off from the world. "Would you like some coffee?" he asked impulsively. "Just boiled a pot." Her smile returned, brightening her entire face. "I'd like that very much." That afternoon changed everything. Over simple tin cups of coffee, they discovered shared experiences of loss, resilience, and rebuilding. Grace spoke of her journey west, of taking teaching positions in 3 different territories before landing in Silverstone. Sam found himself telling her about his ranch, his dreams of expanding his herd, even memories of his parents he hadn't shared with anyone. "Most people in town wonder why I waste my time out here," Sam admitted. "Say I'll never make this ranch profitable alone." "And what do you tell them?" Grace asked. "Nothing. I don't need to explain myself to anyone." Grace considered this, her eyes thoughtful. "There's value in self-reliance, Mr. Whitman. But there's also strength in community." "Samuel," he corrected. "Or Sam." "Samuel." She tested the name, and he liked how it sounded in her voice. "Then you must call me Grace." As she prepared to leave, Sam found himself reluctant to see her go. "The children's school recitation is this Friday," Grace mentioned. "The whole town is invited." "I don't usually attend town events," Sam said automatically. "Perhaps it's time to start," she replied with a gentle challenge in her eyes. Friday found Sam clean-shaven and wearing his good shirt, sitting uncomfortably in the back row of the schoolhouse. He watched as Grace guided her students through poems and arithmetic demonstrations with patience and warmth. The children clearly adored her, even the rowdy miners' sons who typically ran wild through town. Afterward, as townspeople mingled over lemonade and cookies, Sam overheard 2 women talking. "Miss Lawson has certainly done wonders with those children," one said. "Indeed," the other agreed. "Such a shame she's so plain. She'll likely remain a spinster teacher all her life. Though perhaps that's for the best. Those who can't find husbands make the most dedicated teachers." Sam felt an unexpected surge of anger. Plain? How could anyone look at Grace Lawson? With her expressive green-gold eyes, her gentle smile, the quiet confidence in her movements, and see plainness. "Miss Lawson," he said, approaching her after most guests had departed. "Your students did well today." "Thank you for coming, Samuel," she replied, genuine pleasure lighting her features. "I wasn't certain you would." "I said I would," he stated simply. Then, gathering his courage, "Would you allow me to escort you to dinner at the hotel restaurant?" The surprise and delight that crossed her face made his heart quicken. "I would like that very much." As they walked down the main street together, Sam noticed the curious glances from townspeople. The reclusive rancher and the schoolteacher made an unexpected pair. But for once, he didn't care what others thought. Over dinner, Grace spoke of her dreams for the school, for bringing more books and learning to the frontier. "Most people think education is wasted out here," she confessed, "especially for girls." "Most people are fools," Sam replied, surprising himself with his vehemence. "Knowledge is never wasted, regardless of where you live or who you are." Grace studied him thoughtfully. "You're not what people say you are, Samuel Whitman." "What do they say?" "That you're cold, unfriendly, interested only in your ranch and nothing else." Sam considered this. Until recently, they weren't wrong. Spring blossomed into summer, and Sam found himself riding into town with increasing frequency. Sometimes he brought fresh vegetables from his garden for Grace's boarding house. Other times he offered to repair something at the schoolhouse. Each visit, each conversation, each shared smile chipped away at the walls he'd built around himself. On a warm July evening, Sam took Grace riding along the creek that bordered his property. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows, and the setting sun painted the mountains in hues of gold and purple. "I've never seen anything so beautiful," Grace sighed, dismounting to pick a handful of columbine. Sam watched her, the golden light catching in her hair, now loosened from its practical braid. "I have," he said softly. She turned, caught his gaze, and blushed, the first time he'd seen such color in her cheeks. In that moment, Sam realized with startling clarity that he was falling in love with Grace Lawson. The thought terrified him. Love meant vulnerability, and vulnerability led to heartbreak. Yet he couldn't deny the way his heart lifted whenever she was near, how empty his ranch felt when she wasn't there. Their courtship progressed through the summer, marked by Sunday picnics, evening rides, and stolen moments after church services. The townspeople watched with varying degrees of curiosity and disbelief. "Whitman's gone soft," Sam overheard in the general store one afternoon, mooning over the schoolteacher like a lovesick calf. "Can't understand what he sees in her," another man added. "Plain as they come, that one." Sam whirled around, fixing both men with a hard stare. "Miss Lawson is the most beautiful woman in the Colorado Territory," he stated flatly. "And any man who can't see that is blind as well as stupid." The story of Sam's declaration spread through Silverstone like wildfire. That evening, when he arrived at Grace's boarding house for their scheduled walk, she met him with questioning eyes. "Did you really say that about me today? In the general store?" Sam squared his shoulders. "I meant every word. But you know I'm not." Grace gestured vaguely at herself. "The women in the saloon, even Mrs. Peterson's daughters, they're what men consider beautiful." Sam took her hand, an unusual public display for him. "Grace, when I look at you, I see strength that doesn't break, kindness that doesn't falter, and intelligence that doesn't dim. I see the way sunlight finds gold in your hair and how your eyes change colors like the mountains at different times of day. I see beauty that matters." Tears welled in Grace's eyes. "No one has ever seen me that way before." "Then everyone else is blind," he said simply. As August turned to September, disaster struck. A telegram arrived for Grace, and Sam found her at the schoolhouse, letter clutched in trembling hands. "What is it?" he asked, alarmed by her pallor. "It's Richard," she whispered. "He's coming here." "Richard?" Grace looked up, eyes haunted. "My former fiancé. From Kansas." The revelation hit Sam like a physical blow. "Fiancé? You never mentioned." "Because I left him at the altar 3 years ago," Grace admitted, shame coloring her voice. "After my parents died, he changed, became controlling, insisted I give up teaching once we married. When I refused, he threatened to ruin my reputation." "So you ran?" Sam concluded, understanding dawning. Grace nodded miserably. "I've been running ever since, changing towns whenever I feared he might find me. He writes that he's forgiven me, that he wants to reconcile." "And what do you want?" Sam asked, his heart pounding. Before she could answer, the schoolhouse door opened. A well-dressed man with a trimmed beard stood in the doorway, travel dust still clinging to his expensive suit. "Grace," he said, smiling tightly, "you're a difficult woman to find." "Richard," she acknowledged, her voice steady despite her pale face. "What are you doing in Silverstone?" "Reclaiming what's mine," Richard Lynch replied, eyes flicking dismissively over Sam before returning to Grace. "Your parents wanted our union. You dishonored their memory by running." Sam bristled, but Grace placed a warning hand on his arm. "My parents wanted my happiness, Richard. Nothing more." "You belong in civilization, Grace," Richard continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Not wasting your talents in this wilderness." His gaze settled on Sam with undisguised contempt. "And certainly not keeping company with frontier ruffians." Sam stepped forward, but Grace moved between them. "Richard, this is Samuel Whitman. He owns a ranch outside town." To Sam, she added, "Samuel, please. Let me handle this." For the next week, the town buzzed with the arrival of the sophisticated Easterner who claimed prior rights to their schoolteacher's affections. Richard Lynch took rooms at the hotel, attended church services, and made a show of donating generously to the school fund. He spoke eloquently about Grace's talents being wasted on frontier children, how she deserved the cultural advantages of Kansas City. Sam watched as Grace grew increasingly withdrawn. Their usual walks and conversations diminished as Richard monopolized her time with persistent visits and public attention. The doubt that Sam had kept at bay for months resurged with crushing force. Of course Grace would choose civilization over his rough ranch. Of course she would want more than he could offer. On a rain-soaked October evening, Sam found himself alone at his ranch, staring into the fire, when a knock came at the door. Grace stood on his porch, drenched and shivering. "Grace, what happened?" He pulled her inside, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Richard proposed again," she said, teeth chattering. "In front of everyone at the hotel restaurant. He had a ring, champagne, everything perfectly arranged." Sam's heart constricted painfully. "Congratulations," he managed. "I refused him," Grace said, looking directly into Sam's eyes. "I told him I couldn't marry a man who saw me as a possession to be reclaimed rather than a person to be loved." Hope flickered dangerously in Sam's chest. "What did he do?" "He wasn't pleased. Called me ungrateful, said I'd been corrupted by frontier life." A small smile touched her lips. "Then he announced he was leaving on tomorrow's stage." Sam moved closer, afraid to believe what he was hearing. "Why did you come here, Grace? In this storm?" "Because I realized something when Richard was proposing," she said softly. "All those fancy words and grand promises, they meant nothing compared to one simple truth a stubborn rancher declared in the general store." "And what truth was that?" Sam asked, his voice hoarse. "That I am beautiful," she whispered. "Not because of my face or form, but because of how you see me." Sam reached out, gently brushing a wet strand of hair from her cheek. "You are beautiful, Grace Lawson. The most beautiful woman I've ever known. And I love you more than I thought possible." "I love you too, Samuel," she replied, tears mingling with raindrops on her cheeks. "I'm not running anymore. I've found my home." As winter blanketed the Colorado Territory in crystalline white, the people of Silverstone gathered in the small church to witness the union of Samuel Whitman and Grace Lawson. The bride wore a simple dress of ivory satin, her light brown hair adorned with a crown of winter berries and evergreen. "Never seen Whitman smile so much," the blacksmith commented to his wife. "Marriage has changed him." "Grace looks positively radiant," Mrs. Peterson observed. "Who would have thought our plain schoolteacher would make such a lovely bride?" The newlyweds paid no attention to the whispers. As they exchanged vows, their eyes remained locked on each other, seeing what others missed: the beauty that matters, the love that transforms, the home they'd found in each other. By spring, Sam had added a new room to his ranch house for Grace's growing collection of books. By summer, they'd started construction on a proper schoolroom on their property, where Grace could continue teaching children from outlying farms too distant from town. And by the following winter, they welcomed their first child, a daughter with her mother's changeable eyes and her father's determined spirit. On their first anniversary, as they sat on the porch of their expanded home watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, Sam took Grace's hand. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Choosing this life over what Richard offered?" Grace looked around at the ranch they'd built together, the thriving cattle herd, the schoolroom where she taught 3 days a week, the garden bursting with vegetables, and their daughter sleeping peacefully inside. "Never," she said firmly. "This is everything I never knew I wanted. You saw me, Samuel, not as the plain schoolteacher everyone else dismissed, but as I truly am." "The most beautiful woman in the territory," he replied, kissing her gently. "And the love of my life." As twilight settled over the Colorado frontier, the light in their windows burned warm and bright. A beacon of the truth they discovered together, that real beauty, like real love, thrives not in the judgment of others, but in the eyes of those who truly see us, in the homes we build together, and in the life that blossoms when we finally stop running and find where we belong.